And in Pennsylvania, this appeal to the Supreme Court raises very serious issues. It raises pure issues of law.
Will Senator Ted Cruz deliver the oral arguments in Pennsylvania's Supreme Court appeal? We have attorney Joe DeGenova on Trump's legal team to answer your questions live. Plus, President Trump is expected to sign coronavirus executive orders today prioritizing Americans. And later, Goya CEO gives an honorary title to AOC. Hello and welcome to News On. I'm Miranda. Thank you so much for joining us on this Tuesday. Big news in Pennsylvania. Senator Ted Cruz says he will deliver the oral arguments if the Supreme Court hears the appeal for a Pennsylvania election fraud lawsuit. He took to Twitter saying, in part, petitioner's legal team has asked me whether I would be willing to argue the case before SCOTUS. He says if the court grants it, I have agreed and told them that if the court takes the appeal, I will stand ready to present the oral argument. The case he's referring to is a challenge to Pennsylvania's Act 77 and argues that the election violated the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. He later explained his reasoning for getting involved in the case in an interview on Fox. Take a look.
And in Pennsylvania, this appeal to the Supreme Court raises very serious issues. It raises pure issues of law. And I believe the Supreme Court should choose to take the case. I think they should hear the appeal. And as you noted, the legal team reached out and asked if I would be willing to present the oral argument if the court took the case. And I told them I'd be happy to because particularly at a time when this country is so divided, when people are so angry, I think we need a sense of resolution, and we need the Supreme Court to step in and ensure that we're following the Constitution and following the law. Right now, it's not healthy for our democracy what we're seeing, and in Pennsylvania, the problem was made worse because the Pennsylvania Supreme Court is a partisan Democratic court that has issued multiple decisions that were just on their face contrary to law, and that's not how elections are supposed to work.
And joining us live now to help us make sense of all of this is someone extremely familiar with the Trump team's litigation team. In fact, he's part of Trump's legal team, is an attorney for President Trump, Joe DeGenova. Joe, thanks so much for joining us live here on News On. Pleasure to have you. I want to start by asking you this. Do you think the Supreme Court will, in fact, this is the crucial part, right, hear the appeal and the Pennsylvania election case that Cruz, again, is volunteering to give oral arguments for?
I do. I think it's a very important case, and the court has already indicated through Judge Alito that it has very serious concerns about the mail-in ballots, the absentee ballots, all of which were done in violation of the Pennsylvania Constitution. So I think that this case is ripe for consideration by the court, and I think all the indications are that they're going to hear it.
Now, there are a lot of suits in the mix, so I want to just remind our viewers what this suit in particular consists of. This is basically seeking to have the court toss out all the states' mail-in ballots, and this could mean a big difference because it would, in fact, change the outcome of the election. Can you elaborate a little more?
Yes. Well, what happened was the state constitution very severely limits the use of absentee ballots in a few unique circumstances. The Pennsylvania legislature decided on its own to simply change all of the laws around absentee and mail-in balloting in violation of the Pennsylvania Constitution. Then the Pennsylvania Supreme Court went even further, and it said, you didn't go far enough. We're going to extend the deadline for the receipt of all the ballots 3 more days, to extend the counting 3 more days, and we're going to allow, it won't matter if there aren't signatures or the postmarks aren't good. And so basically it became a mail-in free-for-all. And that is what this case is about. And it's just quite remarkable that both the legislature and the state Supreme Court just clearly violated the Pennsylvania Constitution, which says you can't do this. And so it makes it a federal question because they basically denied equal protection and due process to a group of Trump electors and voters because these ballots are illegal.
Well, let's talk about this because there are also reports that Alito had asked lawyers to hear these arguments by as early as today. What are you hearing right now?
Well, he ordered them actually to file their briefs tomorrow, but then he changed his mind and said he wanted it today because today is the so-called safe harbor day for the naming of electors. That date, the safe harbor date, is not etched in stone. It does not appear in the Constitution, and so therefore the Supreme Court can ignore it and do whatever it deems necessary under the Constitution. But he wanted to hear argument quickly because I think he's sincere about wanting to hear the case, and I think he may actually issue a ruling by tonight in the matter enjoining the certification of the Pennsylvania electors.
So ultimately, what do you expect to happen, and what if they don't hear the argument? What next?
Well, if they don't hear the argument, then I think that pretty much takes the wind out of all the sails, and that leaves us only with the Texas case, where Texas has sued the 4 states which had the most serious problems with after-hours voting and illegal mail-in ballots and refusing to allow Republican observers to be in the counting stations in violation of equal protection and due process. So if he doesn't hear the Pennsylvania case further, then it's the last straw will be the Texas case.
There are also a number, as we mentioned, other lawsuits we've been continuing to follow, especially when it comes to those key battleground states. Again, we mentioned the Keystone State. We're going to keep our eyes open for that. But there's still a lot going on in Georgia, and then some updates when it comes to Arizona. So I want to get to those after the break, so we have ample time to kind of break that down for our viewers and what could transpire in the days and weeks ahead. Do DeGenova, stay with us. We still have a lot more to come here on News On. Plus, we're going to be hearing from our viewers because you are the most important voice that we can hear on this program. We had a question that we aired yesterday. We actually got one of you to send us a video response. We're going to share that with you. We're also going to let you know where you can find us, which social media platforms where you can find us. They consist of Facebook, Instagram, Parlay, Cloud Hub, just to name a few. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. You're watching News On. And welcome back to News On. I'm Miranda Khan. We're back with Trump legal team member and attorney to the president, Joe DeGeneva. Joe, moving on to the situation in Georgia, a state that we've focused a great deal on, in particular because of that recent video that was released. The Secretary of State there, Brad Raffensperger, just recertified again Georgia's presidential election results after holding yet another vote recount in his state. Here's a look at what he had to say, and I want to get your reaction.
As a Republican, I'm disappointed in the results, but the results have shown that the results reported on election night were supported by the audit. We did a 100% hand recount, retally, during the audit process, which verified the accuracy of the machines and the accuracy of the count. And now we've done a recount, running all those ballots, those paper ballots, through again, and we've really gotten the same results, virtually the same. And so the results are the results. I'm disappointed as a Republican, but those are the results.
So Raffensperger claims that he is committed, Joe, to upholding election integrity, if you will, which is why he says he recertified that Biden won. But given the alleged evidence that we saw last week, again, where suitcases of ballots appeared to be brought into a Georgia polling center, and then there were calls even from the governor, which I know you've been very critical of, saying that he would like to see the Secretary of State. Now, again, he seems to have switched his position on this, but he was saying this last week that there should be an order to have a signature audit of those ballots. Given that, how do you make sense of his recertification now? Has he just somewhat given up, if you will?
Well, I think the Secretary of State has dug himself into a hole that he can't get out of. This election never should have been conducted the way it was. He's done a recount, but it's been a recount of corrupted ballots. It doesn't do any good to recount the same ballots. That's not the issue. The issue is that Republican observers were not allowed to be present for the counting of mail-in, absentee, and mail-out ballots. They were kept away. They couldn't see. They weren't allowed to observe, which is required by state and federal law. In addition, the entire process involves a degree of uncertainty that requires a signature audit of all the ballots. It requires a forensic audit of the ballot. That has not been done. So no matter what the Secretary of State says, what has happened up until now, given the unique circumstances of this election, is insufficient.
So why didn't it happen, though? Again, going last week, here you had the governor seeming to switch his position, if you will, after that release of that video was unveiled to the public, and there was some outrage there, saying that he himself couldn't call for an audit to be done of these signatures on these ballots, but then saying that, the Secretary of State could. So why didn't it happen?
Well, it looks like some folks in Georgia don't want it to happen, but let's make no mistake about it. That video is telling. It shows that after Republican poll observers, count observers, and the media were told to leave, and that there would be no more counting done until 8:30 in the morning. After they all left, counting did occur in violation of the law, because you cannot count without observers present. The Secretary of State entered affidavits that said there were observers present and that people were not asked to leave. The people in the media and the observers have stated categorically that they were asked to leave. Why do you ask people to leave and then count? It just reeks of irregularity and illegality. And so for the Secretary of State to say that there's no there is just unacceptable. It isn't true.
But then what now? I mean, is there any fight left?
There's going to be, there's not a lot of time left. And so what you have to do is there's more litigation underway. Cases are going up. They're working their way up, and something's going to be coming up from Georgia for the Supreme Court as a result of what they call a contested election lawsuit that was filed in Georgia. So we're waiting for all of that to play out, and everything is happening at the same time.
Okay, I also want to, in the time that we have remaining, talk about some of the news that's coming out of Arizona. So Arizona's top court agreed to review an appeal connected to the state Republican Party chair's challenge of Arizona's election result certification. Here's what the state Republican Party chair, Kelly Ward, had to say. Take a listen.
Because we are asking to look at the 28,000 duplicated ballots that are in Maricopa County alone, as well as all of the digitally adjudicated ballots. Now, if you look statewide, because we'd love to look at those as well, there are well over 100,000 ballots that could be affected, and that is more than enough to swing this election.
So, Joe, what's your reaction to her statement? Do you think there are enough ballots affected to possibly swing the election in that state?
Absolutely. Kelly Ward is a really stellar individual, a great warrior for the vote and democracy. She is absolutely correct. There are huge problems in Maricopa County and Pima County and elsewhere. And they reflect the problems that have happened all over the United States, with no observers being allowed in, overcounts, illegals, the substantial number of illegals voting, people who are dead voting, non-residents voting. So Kelly's absolutely right. Given the outrageous illegalities and irregularities, there are at least 100,000 votes that could be thrown out. And so it is absolutely necessary that the Arizona Supreme Court review this and take a look at it immediately.
So you said 100,000 votes. And I just want to double check here, but I believe Biden won by more than 10,000 votes, but you're saying 100,000. That is the number that Kelly Ward came up with herself. When you count the entire state and all the various types of irregularities, there are that many votes that could be thrown out. That's why it's important for the Arizona Supreme Court to do the full review. All right. Finally, I just want to ask you, what do you think is your best path to victory, if you will? Again, and, assuming that the number one goal is for President Trump to serve a second term.
Well, the best path is for Judge Alito within the next 24 hours to issue an order in the Pennsylvania case refusing to certify the electors that they have sent forward because they are in violation of the Constitution of the state of Pennsylvania and the U.S. Constitution. Once that happens, we think that will open a floodgate of reaction by state legislatures around the country to not certify electors and throw it into the House of Representatives.
Joe DeGenova with Trump's legal team, thank you so much for joining us here on News On. Pleasure to have you. Please keep us up to date on any updates and developments, because we know we're getting them day after day. All right, we want to take a look at some other news. Former Vice President Joe Biden is said to nominate retired Army General Lloyd J. Austin as his Secretary of Defense. Austin is a 1975 graduate of the U.S. Military Academy at West Point. He served 41 years in uniform. If he is confirmed by the Senate, he will be the first black leader of the Pentagon. The impending nomination of Austin was confirmed by 4 people with knowledge of the pick who spoke to the Associated Press. According to them, Biden offered and Austin accepted the post on Sunday. This, again, presuming that Joe Biden does become the next president of the United States. We here on Real America's Voice are waiting for all the certifications to be complete before we make that call. Still ahead here on News On, the U.S. may not be the first country to get access to the COVID vaccine, but as soon as it does get here, it will go directly to American citizens first, thanks to an executive order from the president. We're going to give you all the details about that. Also, we finally hear a word back from the woman who became the first in the UK to receive the vaccine, what she's saying. And that's still to come. You're watching News On. We'll be right back. And welcome back to News On. I'm Miranda Khan. In COVID news, the UK becomes the first Western country to start a mass vaccination program. Earlier today, a retired shop clerk received the first shot in the country's COVID-19 vaccination program. This signals the start of a global immunization effort intended to offer a route out of a pandemic that has killed 1.5 million people. The use of the COVID-19 vaccinations were approved last week in the UK, and the shots were developed by U.S. drug maker Pfizer and Germany's BioNTech. U.S. and European Union regulators may approve the vaccine in the coming days, fueling a global immunization effort. Meanwhile, President Trump is working on signing an executive order that will prioritize American citizens' ability to get the vaccine. The order promises that all American citizens wanting to get it will be vaccinated before aiding the rest of the world. He is expected to sign that order today, which is only just really a few days before the Food and Drug Administration plans to meet with Pfizer and BioNTech for emergency authorization of the coronavirus vaccine. White House officials say this is the president's way of re-emphasizing his America First approach. And despite what's going on there, California's recent COVID orders, White House coronavirus testing czar says the evidence isn't there to enforce the shutdown of outdoor dining. In his statement, he claimed, quote, this, if we can take a look at that, the evidence clearly does not support limitations on things like outdoor dining, particularly that they are spaced, outdoor bars. You know, the evidence just isn't there. And remember, shutting down completely, particularly if you don't have evidence, can be counterproductive. Joining us live now to discuss this is former congressional candidate, Navy veteran, and anti-lockdown activist who has led rallies all across California, from LA to Sacramento. Joining us now, Joe Collins, the third. Joe, thank you so much for joining us here on News On. Good to see you.
You as well. Thank you for having me.
So a lot of mixed reaction here on what's going on in LA. The governor feeling some heat there in California. You're in LA. Can you explain more about the restrictions that Governor Newsom has placed on businesses there?
Yes, Governor Newsom he's attempting to shut down all of California for what he appears to be surges in cases in coronavirus. Now, we know the death toll is still very low in comparison to the amount of people that we have here in California. But the restrictions, in my opinion, are absolutely unconstitutional. And without evidence, you have no basis. Without any emergency executive order or declared emergency, I think it's very unconstitutional to try to shut down our economy. We've seen what happened last time. He tried to shut down the economy. Businesses fail. We have a lot of businesses that are going out of businesses, and people are moving out of California. The people who live in California are absolutely not happy, and thank God our sheriffs are not supporting this lockdown.
Yeah, you know, I've seen so many images, and I'm sure a lot of our viewers have who are watching right now, of restaurants that have to put up, you know, these outdoor eating areas. One would think that, you know, in some ways that's very similar to just eating indoors. What's the reasoning, or is there any behind that?
You know, I don't know why Gavin Newsom wants to stop outdoor eating. In my opinion, it is the same as indoor eating. We already have the 6 feet social distancing orders put in place, and people are following that to the best of their abilities outside of, gathering for the holidays. But, there is no reason to ban outdoor eating. The evidence is not there to suggest that outdoor eating is going to increase the amount of coronavirus cases that we have. And on another note, I would have to ask, how come Gavin Newsom released 18,000 violent prisoners from jail and tries to fine people and arrest them for violating what he perceived to be his orders?
Yeah, Joe, though, let me ask you, though, because, you hear this argument, lockdowns don't work. I mean, as we've mentioned before here on this program, the World Health Organization, in fact, saying they don't work. But then the question is, what do you do? Cases are on the rise in California. There is concern that there isn't going to be enough room in some of these healthcare facilities to help the number of patients there, that healthcare workers are also being infected. What are your thoughts on that? How do you maintain that balance, if you will, if not completely shutting down cities or states? What do you do? Because ultimately you want to protect those most vulnerable, those healthcare workers. If they're not there, who's going to be there to treat the other people, the patients?
Absolutely, and that's a great concern. One thing I think needs to happen, if we're running out of healthcare workers, if our hospitals are allegedly being overwhelmed by people who are contracting COVID-19, I think that more money needs to go into our healthcare entries. We need to start practicing healthy lifestyle livings, but we also can't ignore the fact that the first time we shut down the economy, it didn't slow the spread. So this time it's not going to slow the spread either. I think the best way to go, in my opinion, is keep everything open and allow people to be able to contract the coronavirus and let their immune system do what it was created to do, which is fight these types of infections. That way you already have the antibodies inside of your body to be able to fight this thing in the future.
But Joe, how does that alleviate? I mean, that sounds more like a long-term plan. But again, playing devil's advocate, if you will, these intensive care units are, reportedly filling up rather quickly with COVID-19 patients, and hospitals have a very limited number of tools and staff members, and some are worried that they're not going to be able to have the capacity to treat everybody. How do you take care of that situation?
Well, I'll tell you this. You can, unless you want to put more money into the healthcare facilities. I think that the USS Mercy, when it came down here last time, it was underutilized, so they end up leaving. I think they're bringing the ship back here again to be able to help. But, COVID-19 is here. It's here to stay. So the best thing that we can do is be able to cope with this virus right now.
Well, as I mentioned, the president, again, expected to sign a COVID executive order preventing international vaccine insistence until Americans have received the shots first. This according to reports. Again, this coming just days before the Food and Drug Administration is supposed to meet this Thursday to discuss Pfizer and BioNTech's application for emergency authorization of that vaccine. Let me ask you this. If this vaccine does come out, would you be willing to take it?
Absolutely not. I like my immune system. I think it's doing a really good job. People who want to take the vaccine, by all means, go for it. If you think it's going to help you, go for it. But as far as myself, I'm not going to take it. I'm not telling everybody else not to take it. This is just my own personal perception.
But why is that? Is there a reason for you not wanting to take the vaccine? And I'm curious because I don't think you're alone. Again, I'm always skeptical of polls, but we've done our own non-scientific polls here on this program, asking people if a vaccine comes out, how willing they would be to take it. And there's been this big push again. In large part because of the president and this Operation Warp Speed to get these vaccinations out in record time. Again, something that normally would take a decade, they're now accomplishing in less than a year. But why have the big push if so many people seem so apprehensive to actually take it?
Yeah, exactly. I can only speak for myself. I don't want to take it because 13 years of being in the United States military, we were forced to take different types of vaccinations, and we don't even know the side effects. I know that there are a lot of things that go into these vaccinations that are not healthy for our bodies, and I like to maintain a healthy lifestyle. And so for me, taking the vaccine is repugnant to the type of lifestyle that I want to live. But, if people want to take the vaccine, by all means, go ahead. Sometimes the side effects are worse than the actual disease itself.
Joe Collins joining us live in Los Angeles, California. Thank you so much for your time. Pleasure to have you. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Save well. And still to come here on News On, officials warn Alaska could be in danger of a landslide. More on why when we return. Ongoing landslide dangers remain amid continued rain that is happening right now in the state of Alaska. State troopers there say there is a strong likelihood of additional slides. Torrential rains prompted several landslides in the community last week, the largest about 600 feet wide. It destroyed 2 homes in the community of Haines. The heavy rains have caused damage in at least a dozen communities right now, prompting local officials to seek disaster recovery assistance. The governor there declared a state of emergency this past weekend for communities affected by the severe storm that led to those disasters. Hopefully some relief is on the way. For a look at that and the rest of your forecast, we'd like to send it over now to Weather Nation's Chelsea Ambries and Patrick Crawford for a look at today's nationwide forecast.
I'm meteorologist Chelsea Ambries for Weather Nation, and one of our top weather headlines that we're following is the next round of snow that's expected to move into New England. What we're looking at here is the infrared satellite, basically cloud tops, and all of that cloud energy that's working its way closer to the Great Lakes, well, it's going to pick up some of that moisture and dump it downstream as we head into tomorrow. So for today, any lingering shower action that's out there, it's going to be very light in its intensity, and then we get a break. As we go overnight and into Wednesday morning, here comes that next round of snow crossing the Great Lakes, moving from Buffalo, Syracuse over to Rochester, Burlington to Albany. We could see some of that snow. It becomes a little more scattered in its nature as we head into Wednesday afternoon and evening. Maybe not quite accumulating snow forecast areas like New York City or Philadelphia, but that doesn't mean we couldn't see a rain-snow mix trying to hang on before temperatures warm up. As we look up into areas on the eastern side of Lake Ontario, Lake Erie, a little bit of lake enhanced snow could be in the forecast, meaning some lake effect could give us some pretty big numbers, maybe up to 6+ inches in some spots. Otherwise, we're looking at a coating to about 3 inches by the time all is said and done with this particular forecast. And then once that comes through, we see warming temperatures across the eastern parts of the country. So any snow that does accumulate or try to fall a little bit farther south, by the end of the week, it's all going to melt away. That's just one of the top weather headlines. Patrick, you've got the other.
Yeah, we're watching that energy that's going to be developing in the central Rockies and make its way into the central plains by that Thursday, Friday time frame. And this energy is going to be impacting the Great Lakes, but also down along the Gulf Coast. It's just a very large trough, so we're going to get a lot of jet stream energy all across a good portion of the nation. There's that freezing line. This is going to be very important when we're determining who gets that heavy snow and who gets maybe more of the heavy rain, because we're going to see these two systems come together and that upper level energy really going to start to pick up its intensity as we start to approach the end of the work week and into the weekend. Our forecast model is hinting at areas of eastern Nebraska into central and eastern Iowa and over towards Wisconsin and northern Illinois, maybe starting to see some of that heavy snow from time to time. But there could be some bursts of heavy snow into Kansas as well as southern Nebraska. That's another area that our in-house forecast model is hinting at maybe some significant snow. Whenever we see the purple there on the accumulation forecast, that's when we're getting above 6 inches. And that's typically when we start to get the winter weather advisories and winter storm warnings. So we'll likely start to get some alerts added into the central and then eventually into the Great Lakes part of the country in the coming days as we continue to track this system. So cities like Omaha, Nebraska, beautiful conditions as far as the temperatures go, sky conditions for the next few days, and then things change with that next weather system by the end of the week and into the weekend. That's the very latest weather information here. Have a great day.
So it seems like a lot of times we're talking about businesses that are struggling right now. Well, one business appears to be doing quite well, and that's Goya. Goya's sales spiked after New York Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez called for a boycott of the company's products. This happened earlier this year. Due to this, well, the CEO of the company selected the representative to be the company's Employee of the Month, something she probably wasn't expecting. He says her sales increased 1,000%. So they gave her the honorary title. She became Employee of the Month for bringing attention to Goya and a lot of the attention that's been surrounding the company. He says that the boycott allowed Goya to reach so many people while maintaining its base. His latest comments come as Goya has doubled its production with an $80 million facility in Texas to meet with this increasing demand. Coming up next, we're going to share your voice. Again, the most important voice you'll hear on the show. We're talking about Joe Biden's recent picks for cabinet positions, and included in that is Health and Human Services Xavier Becerra. For more on that, we turn to our partners at justthenews.com. Carrie Sheffield. Carrie?
Hey there, Miranda. Yes, we took a look at the nominee that Joe Biden wants to put up for Health and Human Services. He's been cheered by the left. His name is Xavier Becerra. He's the current California Attorney General, and he served 24 years in Congress, and he was really big about pushing Medicare for all. So some conservatives are really worried, and they say if this proponent of Medicare for all is very aggressive, this could be problematic for people who want more choice and freedom in their health care choices. The other big red flag for conservatives is the issue of pro-life, issues around contraception and abortion. Becerra in California has been very aggressive about going against pro-life groups, to the point where the Supreme Court actually rebuked him in a ruling and said that pro-life groups did not have to forcibly tell women about state-funded abortion, that it was something that they were not required to disclose or tell people because these were pro-life organizations, and that's their intention, that's their purpose for existing. And so he's rebuked in that way. But keep an eye out for this. Also keep an eye out for whether or not he goes after the Little Sisters of the Poor. This is the group of the Catholic nuns who, under Obama, were forced to buy contraception, which went against Catholic doctrine. And President Trump gave some relief in his administration. So keep an eye out to see if Joe Biden, through Becerra here, could be going after these nuns. Of course, we'll keep you posted at justthenews.com.
Time now to hear what some of you have to say. Here is the question that we posted yesterday. We asked you, are you less likely to vote in the future with all of the voting irregularities that happened in this election? Our first response is from Big D on Parlay, who said this: I will be voting, volunteering at the supervisor's office, and vocal with our state government and election committees, starting with our great Governor Ron DeSantis, referring to, obviously, the state of Florida. Please keep Florida's elections legal and counts accurate. Todd from Parlay as well saying this: I don't quit that easy. You go, Todd. Thank you both for commenting there. Next we have is this Dalia Michelle Wright on Instagram, who sent us this. You guessed it, a video. Let's take a look.
Hi, America's Voice, and also Miranda. My response to your question about whether or not I will be voting in the future, considering everything that's been going on with the fraud, and I would have to say yes. After giving it some thought, I think yes. I have faith. I have faith in the Constitution. I have faith in the American people. I have faith in God, and I really do think that we will prevail. So thanks for asking, and God bless.
And thank you for answering. God bless you as well. And there is still time to answer that question. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Parlay, Cloud Hub, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And be brave like she was. Show us your beautiful face. Post a video. We'd love to hear from you. And remember, you can always take us on the go. You can download the app. Again, you can find me at Real MirandaCon or Real America's Voice. Still to come here, a love story. Yeah, a really cute love story. You're just, I think it's utterly adorable. Let's see what you think coming up next. right, who doesn't love a good love story? I'm about to tell you an utterly amazing one. Yes, I said utterly. Two otters, Pumpkin and Harris, both lost their longtime companions earlier this year. They were getting pretty lonely, as you might imagine, and all their otter friends kept telling them they were otter fish in the sea, but they just weren't ready until now. Harris traveled over 400 miles to couple up with Pumpkin. The two have been a happy couple since, and as you can see, they lived happily otter after. Yes, that's a lot of puns for one story, huh? But still cute to say. I love that. Otters are so much fun. Here's something interesting. Have you ever seen what is known as a double planet? I don't think I have. Well, none of us have, actually, really, because this occurrence, well, it hasn't happened in, give or take, nearly 800 years. So with 24 days left in the year, Jupiter and Saturn, two of my favorite planets, will soon line up and look like a double planet. This phenomenon has not occurred again since the Middle Ages, again, 800 years. The rare celestial event will take place after sunset on December 21st, which is the start of the winter solstice. If you miss this one, well, the next one will happen in 2080. So there you go. Mark your calendars. Why not have something that hasn't happened in 800 years happening right now in 2020? Everything else is different. So do you like to dance? Well, I have some breaking news for you. From dancing in the streets to going for gold. Starting in 2024, breakdancing will be an Olympic event. Took them long enough. Come on, it's been around for a while. This will be the first dance sport ever. The International Olympic Committee Executive Board announced it yesterday. Breaking, as it's called, will debut in Paris. Organizers hope it will attract a younger audience. The committee says skateboarding, sport climbing, and surfing also will debut in 2024. Cool. Love to see that. Those were in the works for the Tokyo Games that were postponed, of course, due to the pandemic. It is an annual tradition for children to visit Santa this time of year. So obviously this has got to be pretty tough for a lot of you who have small children because they can't sit on his lap, this year and tell him what they want for Christmas. Now, some kids terrified of Santa. But again, a lot of kids struggling with this. They either, some kids too, they can't speak or they can't hear well. So imagine. But that doesn't have to stop them from celebrating. It doesn't. Deaf and hard of hearing services in Michigan welcome children who are deaf or hard of hearing. Families were invited to this drive-through experience where they met with the jolly man himself, Santa Claus. Love this. Parents drove station to station receiving toys and refreshments for their little ones. The final stop is where they get to greet the big jolly guy who's just like them. How awesome is that? Thank you. Love it. All right. If you've watched the show long enough, you know we're all about food. Well, and it is lunchtime, let's face it, or dessert time. Gooey, fudgy perfection. Tuesday is all about the incomparable brownie, one of my favorite desserts. Each year, December 8th is your day, though. You can do it. You have a reason to do it. In fact, it's your duty. You can indulge in this chocolatey confection. Oh, that looks good. These popular treats have been baked in the U.S. since the early 1900s, and there is no right way to enjoy a brownie, although I have my personal favorites. You can go old school with just plain old chocolate or add some nuts. Walnuts are pretty good. I like that. Chocolate chips or even mini marshmallows. I like a little salt and a little caramel. That's kind of what I like. Bake up a batch, share it with your friends. If my producer's listening or director, bring it to the studio. Just saying, help a friend. And my director says, I got you. No judgment here. Indulge. Again, brownie day. All right, that will do it for this edition of News On. Yes, you can blame us if you blow your diet. Hey, that's what New Year's resolutions are for. As always, you can find us on social media, and we'll see you back here tomorrow at noon Eastern. Don't go anywhere. America's Voice Live is next.